Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us. Team Mosso at the1916company.com. It is in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any of our watches. Email us for pricing at tmosso at the1916company.com. Today we're discussing a model that was available between 2010 and 2019, though rarely in this black label form. You're looking at the third generation Journe Chronometre Resonance. It is a watch 40 millimeters in diameter in platinum that's part of the black label series. So this combination of a blackened gold dial and platinum case only available through the black label series, which in turn is only available at Journe factory stores and then only to those with a prior purchase history from Journe. And it's not just enough to have bought one watch. Reportedly, you have to have spent somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000 at Journe stores today to qualify for black label. The good news, though, is this one is available now. Another restriction, only a certain number of any given model can be made black label per year. So 40 millimeters in platinum here. We have this resonance chronometer, third generation, 8.9 millimeters thick, from lug tip to lug tip, 48 millimeters with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. The watch is a beautiful sight on the wrist. Taking a quick look on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters circumference, you can see being only 8.9 millimeters thick with a domed bezel, it slides easily underneath the cuff. And being only 48 millimeters from lug to lug with tightly downturned lug profiles, you can see how it's not threatening the edge of my wrist, even over the top, which exaggerates the width of the watch. The lugs are not over the edge, so I could recommend this watch for a wrist as small as 14 centimeters in circumference. The strap is high grade, large rectangular scale alligator leather in dark gray, monotone stitch. You can see the edge has a folded profile on the underside. This is an Journe factory strap, no crimping, no gouging, brand new. Note the use of round scale, small scale gator on the bottom. Small round scales instead of calfskin on the bottom, creating a substantially longer lasting strap. We have a matching platinum Journe pin buckle, and then you'll note the use of pull tab spring bars to more rapidly and easily pop the strap out of the lugs without a tool. Also, you can see the pivot points are relatively close to the case, so the strap is inboard of the edge of the lugs. This makes for a better small wrist fit, but it requires the use of curved spring bars, which you can see right here, so there's no impediment to the motion of the strap, so you could pull it straight down out of the lugs if you have that tiny wrist. It also makes for a more integrated look with very little daylight or gapping between the strap and the case. The case is all of high polish with the mid case defined by the overlapping flange of the case back in the bezel. The lugs turn down rather sharply. You can see their blended profiles, almost 90 degrees from the case band. And then we have these little flatted feet to the ends of the lugs. We have not one but two of Journe's double dimple, unsigned, and knurled crowns. I'll talk about what those do in a moment. And then we've got the dial. Again, this is a gold dial. It's just been blackened. And if you look carefully, you can see that the printing on the dial is off-white. It's a sort of cream color for a softer contrast and more warmth than you would get with a stark white print on a black base. So the attention to detail is superb. You could see Journe's signature dial side screws, a feature since his 1991 wristwatch prototype. It was initially a little bit controversial, but now it's become a signature of the brand and also copied across the industry. We have two black polished and beveled steel bezels framing the secondary time zone and the primary time zone. Note that the secondary time zone features a 24-hour format rather than 12, so you can use this for true travel time. Jumping hours and scrolling minutes, power reserve indicator like a marine chronometer, which was its inspiration. When the watch is fully wound, this power reserve indicates 0, as in 0 hours since fully wound. Marine chronometers needed to be wound exactly 24 hours apart, so it was necessary to know how many hours since the last winding, not how many hours until it would stop. Now you can see we have these two hands, which have been synchronized by resonance, but they're not operating in perfect synchronization in that their orientations are different, so they will remain in this orientation relative to each other. It takes about 7 to 10 minutes for resonance to fully couple the two sides of the movement. So once that's done, pull the fly back, and with the fly back, you can, let me just do that right there. You can recenter the hands. And so by recentering them, you synchronize them. It's a lot like a flyback chronograph, and now they will vary relative to each other by less than 5 seconds per 24 hours. They are coupled by resonance. The crown up at the top is used for setting the watch. So you can see the setting of the secondary time zone, and then you could see the setting of the primary time zone, just like that. It's a bullhead winder and setter. Flip it all over, the movement made of solid gold. Journe crafts the movement from 18 karat rose gold, and so it's almost like you have a solid gold medallion under a solid gold dial in a platinum case. Compared to other 40mm watches, this feels incredibly heavy. It's a real privilege and a pleasure. You can also see a great rarity. Now, the Black Label collection had very little overlap with the French-made Eleanor cases. While production of the Eleanor cases stopped in 2008, which was the first year of Black Label, this model debuted in 2010. So sometime in the early production run of this third generation Chronometre à résonance, the last Eleanor cases were exhausted, and you could see the maker's mark of Eleanor, which was a Paris metropolitan area case maker that had served Journe since his earliest pocket watches in the 80s. That's their maker's mark, and then you have the French double eagle hallmark, which is why you have French hallmarks and Swiss hallmarks on this case, whereas on later Journe watches you would not have that. These Eleanor cases are beautiful and highly desirable. Taking a quick look at the movement, again, solid rose gold bridges and plates. We have stripes across the bridges, all screw heads, as well as the rack and pinion for setting the resonance system, mirror finished. We have satination on the wheels, we have beveling on the edge of the bridges, and we have engine turning on the base plate. Now, there are two movements in this 30-meter water-resistant case. So we have one barrel, drivetrain, escapement, and balance, barrel, drivetrain, escapement, and balance. There is no physical link between them other than the fact that they share a base plate. There is no mechanical link between them. Unlike Arm & Strom, for example, there's no coupling spring that mechanically joins the two sides together. But by matching them, balancing them perfectly, and then using this rose gold pinion with the steel rack, you can vary the distance between them until resonance gains purchase. Now, resonance, which can be observed in pendulum clocks and metronomes, essentially couples oscillators to each other as the parasitic emanations from vibration and heat and friction radiate outward, and they begin to communicate with each other until they beat in opposition, synchronized but opposite. And so this was a world premiere when Journe first debuted the technology in 2000 on the original resonance chronometer. And so what will happen is, if because of a shock one slows down, the other is going to be moving in the opposite direction, so it'll be speeded up a little bit, and then it will correct its opposite number so that they always synchronize to each other and auto-correct. That is the magic of the resonance chronometer. And yes, it takes a deft hand and an experienced watchmaker to even work on these. One of the reasons Journe uses spline screws that are not easily opened by amateurs. 6-position adjustment with free-sprung balances. 6 is one more than a standard chronometer. It is one more than a standard high horology watch like a Vacheron, for example. 42-hour power reserve, 3 Hz beat rate, large inertia balances, I think about 10.10 milligrams per centimeter squared, 40 pivot jewels. This is caliber 1499 third iteration, and the way Journe movements are named, 14 is the size in French lean, in this case 32.6 millimeters, and then you could see that it is a 40 jewel movement, so that is the number of pivot jewels as well as cap jewels. Beautifully decorated and impressively spec'd. It has a unique sound against the ear because you have those two synchronized escapements running at the same time. If you love this watch, it may be a long time before you see another like it. This is my favorite version of the resonance chronometer with the parking meter dial, which I describe as the winking watch. The third generation, relatively unpopular during its production, and now a watch everyone seems to desire because it was relatively unpopular. The rarity of the standard model is desirable, but in Black Label, as scarce as hen's teeth on a rooster. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for pricing details.